Radiant and Resilient is about mindset and faith to break paradigms and overcome challenges in our life. Because when the mind, body, and spirit are aligned, we literally radiate from the inside out. I'm Kay Vasquez. Let's dive in. In this episode, I want to share a story of a client that I worked with recently. This client came to me experiencing migraines pretty much every single day. She was waking up anytime between 3 to 5 a.m. every single morning with a debilitating migraine. And it was at the point that she was on medications for the migraine. She was doing monthly injections. She had seen so many different doctors, including the neurologist, the gastroenterologist, primary care. She had seen so many different doctors, and they just couldn't figure out why she was getting the migraines. They weren't able to help her get rid of the migraines. They just kept giving her more medications. And not only was she doing monthly injections, taking medications for the migraines, she also was prescribed medications for acid reflux, also an antidepressant medication, because she discovered that when she took the antidepressant medication, she actually was able to have less migraines and actually sleep at night. But the big clue was when she came to me was that she thought that it was gut related, because what she told me was that when she would wake up in the morning with a migraine, she also felt bloated at the same time. However, the gastroenterologist was not super helpful. Even though she was on medications for acid reflux, it still didn't really get rid of the bloating. And that's where Western medicine can only help so much. And having a Western medicine background, I completely get it. I understand. It was what I was taught. It's like, people have these symptoms, here's the medication, but it didn't actually get to the root cause. Why? Why was she experiencing the bloating in the first place? And why was it triggering the migraine? And so when we started working together, obviously, the first thing I did was look at her gut and figure out what was going on in her gut, what we needed to heal, but most importantly, what were foods that were triggering the migraines? Because there's so many things that can trigger migraines, and I've worked with many other clients who've had migraines. Sometimes it's food, sometimes it's not. In my case, it was never food. I've had a history of migraines. There was not a single food that triggered the migraine in me. But in her case, when we dove into the health of her gut, and the company I use is Viome. So if you're interested in looking into the health of your gut and you want to know what foods can impact your gut, I will drop the link in the show notes. But that's the test that we did with her to figure out what's going on in her gut and what are the foods to avoid. Well, what came back for her to avoid were tomatoes and peppers, spices like black pepper, which was so interesting because those are not typical migraine triggering foods. However, tomatoes, yes, was on the list for acid reflux, but she was still eating them pretty much every day. And that's because her husband did most of the cooking. And she is Cuban, so a lot of the food involves peppers and tomatoes and black pepper. So a lot of the things that she was eating had these foods in it, which was affecting her gut and triggering the migraines. So we worked on healing her gut. And not only that, I put her on a couple supplements because I also understand when we have gut issues, we're not absorbing nutrients. And also people with migraines typically tend to be low in B vitamins and magnesium. So I made sure to get her on nutrients that had B vitamins, magnesium, and she started to feel better. She started to have less migraines. She was able to stop the antidepressant within a week of making changes with her diet and healing her gut. And not only that, I forgot to add that she had canker sores. So as we worked on healing her gut, the migraine started to get better. She was able to come off the antidepressants, stop taking the acid reflux medication, stop getting those monthly injections, and canker sores started to get better. That's because I suspected the canker sores were a byproduct of the gut health. Because I explained to her, when we experience canker sores, it's usually because it's related to immune system and stress. And since 80% of our immune system's in the gut, when we work on healing the gut, the canker sores should improve, but we also had to work on her stress. So as we're working on healing her gut, she also was listening to the audio course called Already Enough that I created. that I give all my clients access to. So if you're not currently working with me and you're interested in learning more, I will drop the link. You can learn more about it in the show notes. So as we're working together, she's diving into RD Love, learning about mindset and emotions and nervous system regulation. At the same time as we started working together, not only were we working on the physical side of things, but I learned that she also was stressed at work. She shared with me that her boss wasn't very nice to her. She didn't feel like she was valued. This was new for her because she felt very confident in who she was and what she did and the services she provided. But the current position that she was in, she didn't feel valued, which was creating a lot of stress within her. And I told her I felt like that also was another root cause to the gut issues, the canker sores, the migraines that she was experiencing. Because when our body's under stress, it affects our nervous system, which then affects all the other organs in the body. As we're working on healing her gut, we're working on her nervous system and her thoughts, shifting her thoughts and her emotions, and just calming the body down, getting it back into a state of healing versus state of survival, because she had been in survival. I truly believe by working on healing her gut and working on regulating her nervous system, her emotions, the mindset, she started to move into a state of healing. And then she applied for a new position at the same company that she worked at, but it was going to be under a new boss. And I was so excited for her because she ended up getting this new position, but then the stress started to come back. And this is why it's so important when working with a practitioner not to focus on just the physical things that we need to do to support our body and our health, but the mental and emotional, spiritual as well. Because as she started this new position, the stress came back. Yes, she had a new boss, but now she had to learn skills that she didn't have, which was creating a lot of stress. She was putting a lot of pressure on herself to show up, to learn these skills. She was comparing herself and felt like she wasn't good enough because she didn't know enough yet. And I had to remind her that this is an opportunity where she gets to learn new skill and to release the pressure. And I gave her some tools and some strategies for things that she was sharing that was creating more stress within her. But not only that, a few weeks later, she revealed to me that her old boss ended up writing a negative review about her. And her new boss had not read the review until after she hired her. And then shared with my client that had she read that review before she hired her, she wouldn't have been hired. So she was starting to feel better, but didn't fully gain her confidence back because she had to learn new skills. Learning that her old boss wrote a terrible review about her, which was not true at all, really destroyed her confidence again, created more stress again. And so what happened was while we were working together, things were shifting, improving, healing, but then all of a sudden she started experiencing the migraines again halfway through. The canker sores started to pop back up again. And she was feeling the tightness and tension in her gut because I asked her, when you're feeling stressed, where do you feel it in your body? She's like, I feel it in my gut. I'm like, exactly. Even though we were working on healing her gut, for the most part, she was avoiding the foods. She could feel the tightness and tension in her gut. This is why it's so important to work with someone that doesn't just focus on healing the physical body, but diving into the mindset, the emotions, the spirit. Because even though she was doing the right things from a physical standpoint, the mental, the emotional things that she was experiencing, or the mental, the emotional aspect of shifting jobs in the middle of it, and then realizing that her old boss wrote a negative review, it really affected her mentally, emotionally, which started to affect her physically. And so working with someone who's able to dive into these pieces is going to be so important, so key to your healing journey, because at the end of the day, life still happens. This is something that I recognize with my clients. As we work together to heal the physical body, life is still happening. My clients are changing jobs. They're ending relationships, beginning new relationships, losing loved ones. I mean, life happens. And even though we're focusing on healing ourselves, healing our body, life is going to happen. So how are we going to show up? How are we going to respond when things are happening in our life that are way outside of our control? A lot of us don't know how to respond. We immediately go into survival, which then will start to undo all the progress we've made. And I've seen it time and time again, not just with her while working together, but clients after we work together. Life happens. And if they're not prepared for it, all the symptoms, all the issues start to come back again. And that's not because they didn't do anything right. No, we got to the root. We focused on healing the body. But it's the mental and emotional aspect that is so key to keeping us regulating, to be able to maintain our health, maintain our vitality. And so when she shared with me what happened, I worked on her mindset and her emotions around that. First, I told her to send her old boss a lot of love. We don't know what's going on with her old boss. And her old boss is probably also in a survival state. We don't know why she said the things that she said in the review that were not true. But also, I told her not only to send her old boss love and compassion, but to keep showing up and doing the best that she can. Because I told her, words mean nothing, but our actions mean everything. So even though her old boss said these things about her, how she shows up, her actions are going to prove whether that review is true or not. And so she did. She just focused on showing up, working hard, doing the best that she can. And a few weeks later, her boss said to her, I see how hard you've been working, and you're doing a great job. By the time we finished working together, her new boss actually saw her value, saw her worth, saw her for who she truly was, and not what someone else was saying about her. And because of that, she started to respond from a different place. She sent her boss love and compassion. And not only that, she had in-laws come and stay with her for a month as well. And she shared with me in the past, it would have created so much stress and tension because the way they live is different. They weren't as mindful of the living space that they're in. And that would also create a lot of tension between her and her husband. But this time, when they came to stay for a month, one, she reminded herself that it's temporary. But two, most importantly, was that she decided to see things from a different perspective. She decided to put herself in their shoes. She decided to show up and respond from love. And that changed everything. She said the relationship with her husband was so much better because the last time they came to visit, they were on the brink of divorce. This time, they're still together. So not only the work that we did together, healing her physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to help her return back to love, helped her show up not just differently at work, but with her relationship with her in-laws, with her husband. And that helped her to also get back to a place of healing where the migraines went away again, the canker sores started to go away. And overall, she was just physically feeling her best self. That is why I share this story, because healing is not only multifactorial, there's so many things that affect us physically, but it's also multidimensional. It's not just the physical, it's the mental, the emotional, the spiritual aspects that we need to look at and support that also helps us heal. And so that is what God has put on my heart to share with you, is that healing is so much deeper, so much deeper. A lot of us are living in a state of survival, in a state of fear. Things are happening constantly outside of our control. But if we can recognize that we're living in a state of fear and shift out of that fear back into love, love is what helps us to heal physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It helps us to reconnect us back to who we are and everything that God has created us to be. And so I truly believe that it is my purpose, my mission, to be a vessel for God, to help others, not just heal physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually as well. Reconnect back to love, because I really, truly believe that love is the frequency of healing. I mean, if you think about it, in the Bible it says God is love. And if God is love and we're disconnected from that love because we're so focused on fear, fear is a spirit that comes from the enemy because he wants to separate us from love. He wants to separate us from experiencing health, experiencing vitality, experiencing peace, experiencing an incredible life. And so when we're disconnected from that, that's when the suffering happens. And yes, I do believe like sometimes we go through trials and challenges in different areas of our life, whether it's health, business, work, relationships, finances, whatever it is, we're going to go through different challenges. But can we see those challenges as an opportunity to learn, to realize where we've been disconnected from God? Because every challenge I've gone through in every area of my life, I realized where I was trying to control. I realized I was focusing on lack, on things that weren't going right in my life, things that I didn't have. And when I'm focused on those things, trying to control lack, it's all rooted in fear. And that's what affects me physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. But when I can shift out of that and focus on everything that God has given me, everything that I do have, and focus on just being an embodiment of love, giving that love to others, because that's really what we are, is an extension of God's love. Life is amazing. Life is incredible. And that's when we become radiant and resilient. So if this resonates with you, I'd love to hear from you. Please share with me on Instagram, or if you're on your journey and you've seen so many practitioners, whether it's Western medicine practitioners, functional medicine practitioners, Eastern medicine practitioners, you feel like you've done all the right things, the lifestyle changes, taking the supplements, exercise, sleeping, and you just still don't feel your best. You still are experiencing physical things in your body. That's what I'm here to help you with, to figure out what's really truly going on, to get to the root cause, to help you to heal physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I'm just a vessel for God to guide you back to who you really are, which is love, to be an embodiment of love and peace. Because when you're embodying love and peace and everything that God created you to be, that's when you are radiant and resilient. So if you need extra support, you need extra guidance, you know that there's so much more, but you haven't figured it out yet, book a connection call. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to learn more about you and see how I can support you on this journey.